Hi there, Elise Dewsberry here, bringing you the 94th installment of my How to Get No Feedback from Elise series. Today, I want to talk a little bit about prosody, and this is going to be a session that I'm sort of calling Prosody for Dummies. And I don't mean to say that people who are writing lyrics are dummies, but this is a really simple approach that a lyricist can use to try to understand how prosody is going to work and what's going to happen when you submit your lyrics to a composer. So for those of you who already understand fully about prosody, skip this one. But so if you look up prosody in the dictionary, you're not going to find exactly what we talk about in musical theater. We've adapted the term to use it in musical theater. The actual dictionary definition is something more like the patterns of rhythm and sound used in poetry, or sometimes the patterns of stress and intonation in a language. In musical theater, when we talk about prosody, what we're talking about is the marriage of lyrics and music, the stresses of lyric with the stresses of music. You can understand right away, of course, that music has stresses. In 4/4, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, with a strong beat on 1, a reasonably strong beat on 3. That's in 4/4. If I said in 3/4, you get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's ones, in it. So in all the different kinds of music, we have stressed and unstressed beats. We want to match those up with the stressed and unstressed syllables in the spoken language. Why do we want to do that? Because just the same way you wouldn't want an actor to walk on stage and as they're emoting, they start putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's going to sound silly, right? Why would they say emphasis and sylLAble? So that means as a lyricist, you don't want to force your singer to have to put the emphasis on the wrong syllable by winding up with lyrics that put unimportant words that should not have stress, onto the strong stresses of the music, because that essentially then forces the singer to sing with the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Now, how can you avoid that? One of the best ways, I'm going to look at this from two different angles. So if you're looking at music, if you've sent your lyrics to your composer and you want to check to see how's the prosody working here, is this going to be okay? One of the quickest, and this is why I call it prosody for dummies, one of the quickest ways to figure that out, even if you don't read music, some lyricists do and some don't. So even if you don't read music, the best thing to do is to take a look at the first beat of every bar. Presumably you understand when you're looking at music, there are bar lines periodically throughout the music. Take a look at what word is on the first note that's written under that bar line. And if you see a word there like in, the, of, then chances are you've written something that does not have good prosody. Now, it gets a lot more detailed than that, because there, like I said, in 4/4, there's another stressed beat. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's another one that you want to check, but might be a little bit harder for you if you don't read music to figure out where that third beat is. But you can see where the first beat is. So that's an easy thing to check out right away. Now, there are other forms of prosody that is considered to be metric prosody. There is linear prosody and there's, I guess, tonal prosody. So there are other things. I'll talk about those in another installment. But let's stick for now just with metric prosody that talks about the beats. Now, if you do notice, and then just one quick little caveat. If you see, if the first thing after the bar line is a rest of some kind, an 8th note rest, a 16th note rest, a quarter note rest, whatever it is, and so therefore there's no note and nothing being sung there, then you're off the hook a little bit, because that means that the first word being sung in the bar is not on a strong beat. So then it could be or the or a or whatever, because it's not on a strong beat. It's going to be on on 1.5 or 2 or something like that. But if the first note line is if the first sung note comes right after the bar, check it out and make sure it isn't a word that does not deserve emphasis. Now, looking at it the other way around, how can you prepare your lyrics before you send them to your composer to try to make sure that doesn't happen? Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of ways to do that. One way is, first of all, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you say the words, the lyrics that you're writing out loud as if you're an actor. How would you say it on stage? Now, the important distinction here is that sometimes when there's a certain kind of sing-song in poetry that is sometimes referred to as doggerel. you know, da 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 da. And so sometimes if you speak your lyric that way, as if it's doggerel, you might think that you're doing okay and that everything's all right, because it might sound like work that stress is falling in the right places. But actors don't speak lines that way. They don't come out and say, I went to school today to see my mom. You know, they go, I went to school today to see my mom, right? So the stresses are different. So you don't want to just read it as doggerel. You want to read it as if it was a speech that an actor was speaking. And then you're going to know where are the really strong beats. There might be some other lesser beats that could be on, you know, beat 3, as I'm saying. But you want to check out where are the really strong beats that you're going to want on a strong beat somewhere in the bar. And once you've determined that, then it can be a little bit easier to make sure that the next part is make sure that when you turn your lyrics over to your composer, that you have clarified in some way where you think the stresses are, because it can be, depending on how you've written it, a composer can misunderstand what they're looking at when they first see your words, and they might start setting it in not quite the way you meant, and suddenly they're setting, you've written it in 4/4 and they set it in 3/4. Or you know that, or you've written it for each line to start with a pickup, but they've set it as if each line is starting with a downbeat. Now, what does that mean if you don't read music? In a 4/4 bar, as an example, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, you can have something that's called a pickup, which is a short note that comes before the downbeat. Da 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 da. So that little unstressed beat, da da, that comes right before the downbeat. The da, not the da, da da. That's called a pickup. Sometimes you can have multiple pickups. You can have da da da. You can have da 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 da. Those pickup words are not stressed. And so you'd want to make sure that your composer understands that it's the second or the third or maybe the fourth word that you've written on the line that is actually the downbeat that starts that line. Now, in order to try and clarify that a little bit further for you, I picked the line, "My Bonnie lies over the ocean." Everybody knows that song, right? My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Everybody knows how that song is supposed to go. And so you know that the stresses are meant to be on Bonnie over ocean. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Everybody knows that. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Now, the my, remember, if Bonnie is the downbeat, then my is, by definition, a pickup. My Bonnie, right? So if you were sending that lyric to your composer and they didn't know the song, you would want to make sure that you bold or underline the word Bonnie so they don't think my is the first, is the word that is supposed to get the downbeat. Because they could set it as, my Bonnie lies over the, right? And then suddenly like, what's happening? Because they started with my Bonnie, which is not, and that's fine. You could, it makes perfect sense. An actor could come out on stage and say, my Bonnie, but if it gets set that way in the music, you're going to be in trouble. My Bonnie lies over the, and all of a sudden it doesn't make any sense. So you want to make sure that your composer knows that the my is a pickup. My Bonnie lies over the ocean, and then they're going to get that. Now, what else could a composer do when they see those lines? They could set it as, even if they understand that my is a pickup, they could set it as my Bonnie lies over the ocean. That's what would happen if you were doing it as doggerel, right? Where that, like I was saying, when you just go da 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 da, you would get my Bonnie lies over the ocean. Which is not right either, because doesn't that sound funny? My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Why would you put a strong beat? My Bonnie lies over. Ver is not something, no one's going to come out on stage and say, my Bonnie lies over the ocean. You know, you're going to say, my Bonnie lies over the ocean. But if it were set that way as my Bonnie lies over the ocean, then they would be forced to sing it incorrectly. So you might have to continue to show where your stresses are and not just that something is a pickup. I already mentioned that there's a couple of ways that things could go wrong if they don't understand that my is a pickup. They could get my Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. Again, what's on a strong beat there? The. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. The is not a word that deserves that kind of stress. So that's not going to work. My bonnie lies over the ocean. Also not going to work because you're stressing my bonnie lies over the ocean. You're stressing e and the and un of ocean, all things that should not be stressed. So you want to make it really clear by putting bold or underline under bon of Bonnie, O of over, and O of ocean. That's the only way you're going to make sure that it gets set as my Bonnie lies over the ocean. Right? So that's one way that you can clarify that. Now, the next thing that you have to remember as a lyricist is that if that's the first line of your A section, then the next time in the next A section, so you've written a stanza. Now, when you write your next stanza, it's going to match that. It's going to be like the second verse or whatever. You have to match that, not just syllable by syllable. This is one of the most important things to remember. Syllable by syllable won't necessarily, happenstance could get you there, syllable by syllable. But you need to match it stress by stress. So as I was saying earlier, for instance, my bonnie lies over the ocean has 9 syllables. My bonnie lies over the ocean, 9 syllables. So I could pick a line like, my mom is going to the store. That's 9 syllables. Wait, my mom is going to the pet store. Okay, that's 9 syllables. My mom is going to the pet store. A perfectly reasonable sentence. You could say that out loud. You could go out on stage and say, my bonnie lies over the ocean. My mom is going to the pet store. However, those cannot be set to the same music. The music would have to be adjusted somehow, which is not really what you want. The aim is that if it's the first line of each A section, the music shouldn't have to change. You shouldn't be handing your composer extra syllables or lacking syllables so that they have to fudge around in order to set it. You want it to set to da dee da da dee da 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 da, right? My bonnie lies over the ocean. La dee da da dee da da dee da. Now, what happens if you try to do this next 9 syllables that way? My mom is going to the pet store. My mom is going to the pet store. Ing is getting stress, which is not how you would say it. You wouldn't go out on stage and say, my mom is going to the pet store. So why would you want to force your singer to sing? My mom is going to the pet store. You don't want them to do that. It's 9 syllables. What's wrong? It's 9 syllables, but the stresses don't land in the same places as they do for the 9 syllables of my bonnie lies over the ocean. So that's how important it is. As a lyricist, you need to, syllable by syllable will not get you there. You need to match syllable by syllable and stress by stress. Now, as I was saying before, there's a lot of other elements to prosody, and maybe in my next couple of blogs, I'll talk about linear prosody and I'll talk about melodic prosody. But that's the most important one is the metric prosody, which makes sure that your actors don't wind up being forced to sing the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Okay, so hopefully that will help you, even for lyricists who don't read music. Hopefully that will help you understand a little bit more about how to guarantee that your lyrics are setting you up for success in terms of prosody, and that you're communicating properly with your composer so that they can then expand on that and make sure that they set it the way that you had in mind that will work for prosody. Okay? So all that being said, I am done now, and I hope you are working on your good prosody going forward. Thanks, and toodaloo.